of these, but we've already done the investigation on them, so it's already been very thorough with it. But I just wanted to make everybody aware this will be a very short meeting. All right. Deborah, tell me when you're ready with the recording.
Okay.
As I do this, Leroy, we grab the okay, so we're at 5:30. We'll begin with a roll call.
District 1.
Paul Gary for District.
Burns Jr. for District 4.
Herb Dyer, District 5.
And Darren Schroeder, Mayor. We are all here. If you will, please stand with me for the pledges. First to the American flag. I
Pledge allegiance to thee,
Flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty.
under the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one.
All right, and please remain standing. We have Terry Calvary Community Church. Thank you, sir.
Father, we thank you. Your word says for us to lift up our elected officials and pray for them, Lord God. And that's what we do tonight. We just pray that you would give them the knowledge and understanding they need, and Lord, which comes wisdom, Father. We just pray that you would give them the wisdom to make the decisions. Father, we pray that they would have the heart of the people, and Father, we just pray that they would be an honor and a glory to you, and we lift them up and ask your blessing upon them in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right, next item is citizens' comments. I will remind people, please keep your comments to 3 minutes and make sure that you speak your name and address. Bruce, you're first on the list.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Alexander. I live at 516 Vienna Street. I'm here today to ask City Council to not take any action to approve item number 8 on the agenda in setting the dates, times, and place for UDO public hearings at this time, and to direct staff to bring this item back to City Council for consideration at a future City Council meeting before issuing public notices for actions not previously approved by City Council. The decision by staff to mail notices of public hearings before City Council action authorizing them has created mass confusion as to how the proposed changes will affect the residential areas of Castroville, historically considered for single-family dwellings. Councilman Dyer asked for a side-by-side comparison to be prepared by staff to enable everyone to see what changes were being proposed. This either did not happen or was not made available to the public. In addition, while the wording of the notices mailed out appear to be technically legal, they do not provide citizens an opportunity to turn in any type of response in support of opposition or support of the proposed zoning changes, other than to contact the community development director, Simple City, or attend a public hearing in person through their attorney or agent. Previous notices attempting to change zoning, including a document citizens could provide comments on with their position for or against the proposed changes. Why was this not included in this notice? I believe the notice is flawed and should not have been sent out before the dates were set by City Council. This is another example, in my opinion, of the city putting the cart before the horse and attempting to simply check boxes with anyone involved in making the final decisions on the proposed changes. Based on the public outcry and confusion that I am aware of, I encourage City Council to take action to void the notices mailed out by the city staff, and at a future City Council meeting, put consideration of the proposed zoning changes in UDO on the ballot for the May 25th election to allow for the voters to decide on the magnitude of changes being proposed for every property within the city of Castroville. And second, I also encourage item 7 to be tabled until City Council is presented with an amendment to ordinance 2018-003, section 8287, considering the use of golf carts for review and consideration. Your proposed new rules allow golf carts, but your ordinance prohibits them in the park. So I don't see how you can approve new rules without amending an ordinance. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. And when we get to that item, I'll address some of those specifically. Next, I have Phyllis Sandleben.
Hello, I'd like to address two things. Phyllis
I'm sorry,
Satleben,
for the
109.
record, can you state your name and address,
I'm
please?
sorry?
For the record, can you state your name and address, please?
She-
Can you state your name and address for the
Yeah, I
record?
was going to do that.
Thank you.
Phyllis Satleben, 109 River Knoll.
Thank you.
Okay, my comments are in regard to the current agenda item on the consent agenda, which is, I would opine to be irregular. If you look up the Secretary of State website, you will see that the Open Meetings Act was enacted in 1967 for the purpose of assuring that the public has the opportunity to be informed concerning the transactions of public business. Citizens are entitled to more than a result. They are entitled not only to know what government decides, but to observe how and why every decision is reached. This is from the Secretary of State, Attorney General's website. So, the consent agenda is also explained on the Secretary of State website, Attorney General website, and a consent item, a consent agenda item, according to them, are items that anticipate or require little or no individualized discussion. So that could mean you guys already decided. They don't have a discussion due to their nature of being clerical, ministerial, mundane, or routine. And the agenda item I'm discussing is the interlocal agreement establishing the, not a, the Medina County Regional Water Alliance. All right, already your use of an article insinuates that, again, you've already decided. And this is nothing mundane, and it's nothing routine, and it's nothing to make your meeting efficient. As I noticed, Mayor Schroeder said, we're in a rush. Putting this on a consent agenda is not a example of efficiency. To me, it looks like I opine that it's being hidden because it's already done. I'd like to also include the fact that numerous constant advertisements for UDO, Simple City, rezoning, on and on and on in the Mayor's Corner, in our official newspaper, the Hondo Anvil Herald, is transparent, and it's to all the citizens. However, this, when I talk to people, constituents, nobody knew what I was talking about.
I'm going to ask you to wrap it up. We've hit 3 minutes, and I'll ask you to start to wrap it up, please.
So I ask it be taken off the agenda and in a public meeting as according to the Secretary of State's legal directions, that it be done separately.
Thank you.
And I could cite that, but I'm out of time, obviously.
Thank you. All right, next we have Bob Lee.
My name continues to be Robert Lee. I live at 1314 Gentiles. Next week, who knows? To satisfy my councilman Dyer, I'm going to ramble and jump from item to item. I went through the 239 pages of the UDO. I felt last night like I might have had a stroke from my heart beating so hard. I'd made this beautiful place in the country with a great home, and they were going to put a freeway through it. That's kind of the way I felt. Anyway, after reading through that, I had 15 pages at least of questions. You know, I'm big on that kind of stuff. And questions that are answered in the subdivision ordinance and the sign ordinance and the CZO are not answered in the UDO. And like today, I go over there and I ask them, well, where are the things about sight lines? Where are the things about setbacks? Where is this? Oh, they're in this document or they're in that document. They're somewhere else. They're not in this document. I said, well, I have a unified development ordinance and now I got to go to 15 other places I didn't have to go to before. I said, that doesn't make any sense. So that means you'll probably pass it. And the gentleman over there had a very interesting thing he told us. We were looking at the map of the city. And he said, yeah, this map, the city told us this map goes back to 1970 something. It is the official map of the city of Castroville. I said, maybe they told you that, but I don't believe it. And I said, because for 20 something years, we looked for those maps. Never, ever, 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 ever found them. And if magically they found those maps for you, that'd really surprise me. And so I've made a request of the city to show me those original maps that you found, to lay those districts out. We know they're in the ordinance. Boy, I like it when I get hot. We know they're in, you see my face is red? Chemo cream. We know they're in the ordinance, but we have never, ever, ever found them. And I don't believe you found them either. But if you got the justification for those maps, let's go for it. Things that I was disappointed in the UDO, there's really nothing about parking in there. How many spaces per spot? I can't park in the front of my house on some of those. Setbacks, the guy says, oh, you go to the fire code to get setbacks. Things like I can build 15,000 accessory buildings on my property, not that you live in, but just other buildings, and there's no limit. They don't count against the 40% coverage of the lot. They don't count. It says that right there. So if I live next door, somebody bought the lot and they built 1,000 little sheds outside, nothing I can do about it. You know, I don't think that's good. Into the historic kinds of thing. Oh yeah, the other one was in there. It says the Brianna or her representative can come into my house and inspect. There's nothing in there about giving advance notice. There's nothing in there about what you want to expect. There's no rationale whatsoever. The police can't even do that. But it says in the ordinance that community development people can come into my house or my business and inspect without any kind of criteria whatsoever. That's not good. When we get to the zoning board of adjustment, it says there is one, of course, state requires it, but there's zero criteria as to what it is they're supposed to judge against, nothing. And I'm going, well, how do you do that? You flip a coin and say, well, I don't like it today, I don't like it tomorrow. There's no standard. And so that doesn't work for me. Says you can build in the floodplain, as long as you have a 2-foot thing. And you can, you'd be stupid, but you can. But there's also a hydrological study required by the state if you build in the floodplain to show that you're not going to alter the flood level by X amount. Okay, that's required. Nowhere is that mentioned in there. Not good. It looks like we are pushing density in some areas.
Bob, I'll ask you to wrap it up. Yeah,
You're watching.
you're a little over.
Anyway, I'll send you plenty of emails, text
Perfect.
messages, and letters just to keep you guys on your toes. Thank you.
Sounds great. If you don't mind, just stick around for a couple of minutes, and I do want to address some of those things, but we'll get them in here. We won't be very long. Thank you. All right. Is there anybody? So we've gone through the people that signed up. Did anybody else want to speak for citizens' comments? Okay. I am going to go to the consent agenda. I'm going to ask our attorney, as we have talked about the Medina Regional Water Alliance as a source of finding redundant water sources. We've discussed this a number of times in open session. And that's why it's on the consent agenda. Do you see any legal issues there?
So whether or not something remains on a consent agenda is solely within the purview of the city council. Any one council member can ask that an item be removed from consent, and you vote on it to remove it.
But having it on there as it stands there, it is perfectly legal, correct?
That is a policy decision for the council. Yes, it is legal. It's been placed on the consent agenda. It is up to the council if you leave it there.
Okay, perfect. So the next item is on the consent agenda. We have minutes for November 12th, 2024, regular call meeting, approve Medina Valley High School swim team agreement, and approve interlocal agreement establishing the Medina County Regional Water Alliance. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have 2 nays, is that correct?
2 nays and 3 ayes. Motion passes. Next item is consider and take appropriate action approving Parks and Recreation updated regulations, rules, and guidelines for the city on parks. This I want to go through again. I don't. What I'd like you to do is just, we've already talked through some of these things. We have some things that still need to be worked on. If you can go over the highlights, I think that we can dig into this a little bit more potentially at another time. I don't know that we're in a huge rush to get this passed, correct?
That's totally up to council.
If you can go through the major highlights of this, the recommended changes, what they are, why they are.
And true, as Bruce said, we will have to bring back an ordinance since they were passed with an ordinance.
Yep.
So,
I don't think that there's a rush for us
Correct.
to rush this through. There's nothing that's pending that requires us to move quickly. So I do want to have the discussion about it again quickly, and then we can dig in if there's any questions going forward on the individual items. Do you have a presentation for this, or is it?
It's whatever's in the council packets.
Okay, will you just go through the highlights of, because we've discussed this a few different times, you brought it to us before. So what are the major items under here for the recommended changes?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is just trying to consolidate all of our rules and regulations into one document. We don't have any rules and regulations or any type of document for some of the other parks outside of regional park. So that's why we're trying to get rid of this 2017 version and then just put everything together. So that way it's in one document that can be found online, can be easily accessible for anybody who's looking for it. And then it has all of our parks, it has all of the properties, Steinbach House, the Berry House, anything has rules or regulations or certain types of rules and regulations are all going to be there. So that is really the biggest thing, trying to consolidate everything into one document that's viewable and user friendly for everybody online.
Okay. What I'll ask is for council to go back through this as we've discussed before and find if there are any of the anomalies that you want to take a pause on, you want to make any changes to it. Are there any specific comments on that right now?
Yes.
Okay. Start with you, Sheena.
So on page 3, under park regulations, I have the same concerns about the go-kart, four-wheelers, golf carts, that portion, because we do have an ordinance that's being updated. So,
Can you clarify which page 3? Are you talking about
the
the
very
old?
beginning, under the Castroville Regional Park.
Okay.
that's old.
Okay, so that is the old document. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you have that in there,
Mhm.
which, unless authorized for handicap access to park facilities, a lot of families that live near the park for whether their kids doing scouting stuff or sports stuff, and stuff like that, they use a legal ATV of some kind to get there. So where do you expect them to park?
So this is one of the ones where in citizens' comments it was brought up. The bullet point itself says go-karts, four-wheelers, golf carts, off-road motorcycles, and similar non-licensed motorized vehicles are prohibited in the park unless authorized for handicap access to park facilities. So we understand that this is a really big topic, and we understand that people are going to use it. So in the new document, what we did is we added at the bottom a special note: golf carts may be used in the park as long as they obey Texas law or city ordinance. Please refer to the City of Castroville's Code of Ordinances for further information regarding golf carts. Now, again, it depends on how and what you consider the park. If you consider the roadway the park, or if you consider anything inside the Ballards the park. So Park Board is thinking anything inside the Ballards park, and that's not what we want to allow golf carts. We want to allow them on the road, and they can still park just like any other motor vehicle, but we don't want them inside the Ballards.
So I think that if you clarify on that the first bullet point, the second one or the last one that you just pulled up here is perfectly appropriate, and then just be more specific in the language about where they're not. So what you're doing is we're not saying it's okay or it's not okay, but this is where it's not okay. You can't take it on the trails. You can't take it inside the Ballards, that kind of thing. So let's clarify that. Okay, anything else?
Then you had on here regarding portable generators are not permitted, but we have when we have events and everything like that, people bring their portable generators.
Correct.
So.
And those are under special event requests. And those are generally only for July 4th events, where the vendor, we We got the vendor to agree to use it. They're a quieter generator, and it's for a special event. They're not coming in just randomly and bringing in generators
So only for 4th of July.
for special events.
Okay, because you just said for 4th of July.
And that's
I
on,
use that as an example.
well, and that's on page 7 of the current or the new proposed. Because I said the same thing because we have some special events that have to use it.
Yeah, because we don't have enough
And
power.
it's with permission from the city administrator, is what it says.
All right,
It's at the very end of the
yeah.
document.
So you should just make very clear on any of these regulations. First of all, as much as possible, don't mention them in multiple areas, trying to keep them to the same. But with something like that, if there is an exception to that, make sure that you call out the exception in that area and tell them where they can find the exception process.
Those are my concerns right there that I
Okay.
can see.
And maybe I should have marked them a little different to where y'all would see that the first one is the current. And maybe we should have put a note to say the proposed, so you wouldn't get confused.
Just on the dates,
Yes.
All right.
I only had the comment about the generators, so that's what I was worried about. Thank you.
All right. Phil, anything?
Right now.
Councilman Mertz, Councilman Dyer? Herb, did you have any questions?
I just think that the information about golf carts needs to be expanded a little bit so it's clearer.
Absolutely.
And I
Okay.
think, and if you don't mind, so clarify golf carts, where they can and can't go, and generators. But again, Park Board is really trying to work on this, and they're doing a great job, staff as well. And we would like this document to be updated yearly, because as you see, it's from it's old, it's outdated. So yearly, updating this document yearly will help us put in that code of ordinance for the golf carts once they get adopted to council. So
Great.
great.
All right. If there's any other, I think it would be good to just go through it line item by line item, making sure, and have somebody proofread it and just say, does this make sense to you? Is it clear to you? And then we'll continue to go through that. So we should be able to get this done probably in January. So we'll bring it back for then.
Sounds good.
All right, great.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
Okay, next item is consider and take appropriate action on setting dates, time, and place for UDO public hearings. One thing I wanted to say on this one, so what we're trying to do is make this a very public process. So when we talk about having public hearings, it's to make sure that the public has an opportunity to speak back, to voice their opinions, to ask questions, to get clarification. I agree with you. I did not like that letter. This city council did not approve the content of that letter. I did send out in your utility bills, it's an explanation of what the wording is and why it is, but that should have gone out first before the letter. I was caught off by the timing of it. So I would call this a great opportunity to improve and do things better. I would also say that this, it was very upsetting to a number of people, including myself. My wife read the language and it just made her mad. So we need to make sure, and she knows that, she knows. So we need to be more careful about that. And we're always striving to do it. I'll say it again. It's a great opportunity for us to get better at doing better communication, explaining things to people before you have to. The state does require us to put out some of this language, and it's very confusing language. But if we let you know ahead of time, you're going to see this language, and you're not going to like it. But this is what it means, as much as we can to make that clear for you. So we'll continue to do that. The public hearings, again, this is not something we are trying to push through. We don't want to have analysis paralysis because we need to get this done. But Mr. Lee was talking about some points, like very specific points. We need to dig into those points and look at what each one of those individual points are. There were some things in there that I found quite disturbing that I may have overlooked. When I look at the document, there's a lot of things. I'd say that we're getting closer. We are not close to being done. We're getting closer. We are not close to being done. We will do this as quickly as it is practical, not delaying it unnecessarily, but not passing it before we're through with this conversation. And there are some sticking points where we still don't have consensus with the public. And so this is something that we will continue to do through. I want to make sure that we're doing this in public hearings as much as possible, because I want people to have the opportunity to go to those and to learn about what does it actually mean, what are the implications, and to have that discussion about these are the things that concern me. Does it mean this? And really have a chance for us to stay accountable to what we're trying to achieve. And what we're trying to achieve truly is trying to keep Castroville from changing from the from the character that it has. And we're doing a lot of updates all at once. I don't want to pass it and then fix it later. I want to get it right the first time. We spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and quite a bit of consternation to get this done. We need to make sure that it is done correctly and completely before we move on. So I would like to, well, I wanted to clarify on the public hearings, Brianna, this is, so the intent of these public hearings is to continue the conversation, or is it something different? And Mr. Lee, if you will, please do communicate those individual items, share your notes with your council person and with myself, if you don't mind, and love to sit down and talk them through. Thanks.
Hi, Council. Yes, so these public hearings are just so we can really get it out to the public. We can start, I mean, yeah, the zoning notices, I know a lot of people, it was jarring, but I think regardless of the time we sent those out, those were going to be jarring. Like people, it really got people talking. You should see the amount of people we've had over at the community meeting that we've had. A lot of positive feedback, a lot of good feedback. So these is just to keep the conversation going. I would recommend, as you probably saw in the agenda report, to hold these public hearings. These have already been sent out in a letter to people, and they're going to keep referring to that letter. So I would strongly advise to hold the public hearings. Does that mean that y'all have to adopt on February 25th? No, y'all can keep that conversation open, but let's start those public hearing processes to get as much community feedback as we possibly can.
Yeah, but there's jarring for the citizens, but we got blindsided.
I apologize for that.
About the letter?
About the letter.
Right.
Because I had people showing up from all over the city. Did you see this? And I hadn't even been home yet to check my mail. So
Right.
I had no idea what they were talking about, and they showed it to me. And I had to turn around and say, I have no idea where this came from.
Yeah, I apologize for that.
It was
A great opportunity for improvement.
it is, but it was a big mistake to overstep that hurdle.
Totally agree.
And we really need to do better. The first thing in bold capital letters, you are screaming at people.
That is per state law. I can't change.
Well, no, you don't have to have it in bold.
Yes, I do. It's per state law.
You have to have this bold.
Bold and 14.5. Yes.
All capital letters?
It's very specific. Yes.
So see, that need to be clarified to people too, because it comes
Right.
across.
And that's what I said from the beginning.
Yeah.
I sent out a clarification that it's going to be in the utility bill.
It's not business people that got these letters too, and so you got business owners that are like,
Yep.
what
Yeah, and like I said, I apologize. I understand that y'all were blindsided. In my defense, no, just kidding. No, but we did send this out in the utility notice the month before, saying this is the information you are going to see. It was in the utility notice the month before to every person who gets a utility bill, I believe, that says this is the wording you're going to see at the top of the next zoning notice that goes out. This is what it means, and these are what these dates are clarifying. So it was there a month before.
but not
So-
to us.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
Mr.
so
Mayor,
we are-
The letter's not on the agenda. Why are we talking about it?
Well, it's here as part of
It's
it's
part of the package.
documentation.
I'm okay with talking about it. It's part of the package, and it has the dates on
I
there.
think we should be talking about the letter. It's not on the agenda.
Okay.
The letter
So
includes
as
the dates, that's why they're discussing it. The dates that you're going to be voting on are in the letter.
So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the letter specific. I have a thing on the future agenda items, and we'll discuss that.
Okay.
Okay. A point of clarification, Mr. Lee.
Yes, concerning this particular item, what I would like to see you all do is have a bunch of what-if sessions with HLC, P&Z, and yourselves. My concern is primarily with the old part of Castroville. This probably fits well with the new part of Castroville that was coming. But if I take some of the things that are allowed in the UDO, if there's some areas cleared out, some infield of the old historic area, what does that mean to the people that are there if I follow what's allowed
Right.
in that new UDO? Okay, what's the impact on those people going to be that's going to change things?
And I would say bring those to the public.
Have those conversations
yeah.
ahead of time
So you can make some changes possibly for the public or whoever saying, we looked at this and if we did this, probably not gonna work very well.
Absolutely. And I think that we're open. I've had those conversations with people individually. We've had them at the public hearings. We're trying to open this up as much as possible. To your point, what are the unknown implications of the things that we're doing? I know. Yep, totally agree. Okay, so on this one, in the spirit of making sure that we continue open communications, and this is not pushing an agenda to get it passed, but it is to keep communications open, keep everything on board, and have the kind of discussions that Mr. Lee was just talking about. Can I have a motion to approve the? Yeah, I'm
Can
sorry.
we get a chance to talk? I mean,
Absolutely.
we gonna have any discussion about it? So
Yeah.
far, only one council member's been able to talk.
Okay. If you'd like to discuss now, I'd be open to that.
When it's my turn, I got a lot of things I'd like to talk about.
Okay. Please.
My turn now?
Yes.
First of all, none of the questions that I've raised in the previous meetings have yet been addressed. And I feel like those things should be addressed before we start having public hearings, because those are way down in the weed kind of questions. You heard Mr. Lee make the comment today that it's very, very hard to compare the three ordinances that we've had for 50 years to this new ordinance. And unless every citizen is going to take about a month of their time, they're not going to be able to really do an audit. Somebody on the city staff needs to do an audit and present that to the council so we can see where every requirement that currently exists in the three ordinances that you're proposing to replace, where will they appear in the new ordinance? What have you taken out of the three existing ordinances, and why did you take them out? And what have you added, and why did you add it? And that kind of an analysis is going to take the staff a long time. And it isn't going to get presented in a 5-minute presentation to the city council. That's my first point. My second point, we had in the last city council meeting, an executive session, there were questions posed by members of the city council that have not yet been answered by the city attorney. And I think the answers to those questions are absolutely essential before we take one more step towards public hearings. And I want to hear those answers and have a chance in executive session to discuss them.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also like to point out that there's never been an election held in this city to establish a historical district. The property owners.
That's not a part of this UDO discussion.
Excuse me. It's germane to scheduling the public hearings. We need to.
The historic district is
Okay,
not.
I'll stop talking about that.
But you're right. We do.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to
identify
make
that.
a motion. I move that we table this item until the council receives the answers to the questions that we posed at the last meeting to the city attorney.
Even though we've already published actually, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so the question is, we've already put these dates out for people.
Can I have a discussion now?
Please.
As Brianna said, I think there's nothing that stops us from continuing to have public meetings as we go forward. But since we've already told people we're going to have public meetings by written notice, let's have these. And if we find out that we're not have enough feedback from the citizens at that point in time, because like Bob Lee, he has some very valid questions. Those would typically come out in a public forum. And so if the more we get, the better it is. So I don't see any problem with starting forward with these, knowing that there's going to be probably others. And I think it would be confusing to the citizens to send out a notice and say, oh, forget the notice. But that's my comment.
Okay, further
I
discussion?
really agree. I think that canceling these public meetings would look more like deceptiveness than it would look like transparency.
Okay,
I am personally hesitant to use the excuse that we've already sent the notice to justify setting the hearings. I think that is, as Mr. Alexander said, putting the cart before the horse. However, I do think it would be appropriate to continue with this current schedule. The only difference I would possibly recommend is removing the and final action from the second city council hearing in February 25th, just to make it clear that we intend to get this input before we vote on the matter.
So
Okay.
we'd like to have the opportunity to have more meetings if needed, yes.
okay, so I have a motion and a second to table this item. If that doesn't pass, then we can discuss modification of this. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, time out
All opposed, nay. So
to table it.
I have,
So,
I have three people so the motion dies.
okay.
Okay,
Well, yes.
do I have another it was overwritten. Do I have another motion? What I heard was keep the schedule, remove the final action possibly, and wait until we feel like we're ready to do that. So remove that wording, but keep the schedule.
So I make a motion that we keep the schedule, and by the 8th of January, planning and zoning presentation, public hearing, or the 25th of January, city council, all questions that were submitted to the city attorney regarding this be answered. That way we could give citizens and make the correct information, and we're doing this right, and that the document answers all questions.
So that's a big motion. Would you be okay if we made the motion for the timing and gave staff instruction to make sure that this happens?
They jumped the gun already.
Agreed?
So.
They're trying to push it through, and I'm not,
I understand. However, Herb has valid things.
Totally agree.
And we instructed the city attorney to look into something to give us guidance.
Right.
And we need that information
Yes.
when we meet with citizens in these public hearings to answer their questions.
So I have to deal with the motion that has been proposed. So what is your motion then? Do you want to make a motion to have the dates and then give instructions to
Yes.
staff? Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah. Can I?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm
So
sorry.
I have a motion let me make sure that I've got this correct. I have a motion to approve the dates.
Of February the 11th and February 25th. Is that correct?
Right.
Striking.
During the meeting.
call for final
Striking the call for final action.
Yeah, we're just
But
doing
that's-
dates only.
Yeah, dates.
For public
This-
hearing only.
This motion is only for the dates.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve the dates, and we'll separate this into two separate pieces. Do I have a second to approve the dates?
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Yeah, who made the second?
I'll do both of us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I heard,
Myself and David, yes. go
I
ahead.
heard
All right,
David on my.
so we'll have David do that one as a second. Discussion. Please.
In my opinion, this ordinance is not ready for public hearing. There are way too many issues. And we shouldn't be in a rush to schedule all these meetings until we can resolve those issues to the satisfaction of the council.
I believe that you are absolutely right in terms of we have a lot of questions that need to be answered. The public has a lot of questions that need to be answered. And so this is and should be a very public process as we go through this. It doesn't detract from the fact that we need to get these answers before we take it. And we will.
Mr. Mayor, when you hold a public hearing,
Mhm.
you're checking off the box that's required by law. And then later, we come back and say, oh, we held the public hearing. But we didn't really answer any questions because we didn't have the answers. So we checked off the box. And then later, when we get the answers, we say we already had the public hearing. So I think the public hearing, maybe you could rename it to something else and have a information discussion, opportunity for people to come and give their opinion, like was done today
Yep.
at the Landmark Inn, where people could come in and express their opinions.
That was a public hearing. Was that
That's a forum,
Yeah,
but
it's a community workshop.
right?
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that also would be very, very beneficial. I mean, I think any chance the public has to give their input is also good. But I completely agree with Mr. Dyer. I just think that because we already had those dates, people will want to come and give feedback. So maybe, yeah, it's not a public hearing, but maybe it's just I don't know, community expression of whatever.
Doesn't a public hearing have to have
Yeah.
or minutes, and somebody's got to record what's said and who said it? And those meetings today were not public hearings.
Well,
They were just
no,
discussions.
It was just a community workshop. That was not a public hearing. Yeah.
So do we need to? We're not trying to check legal boxes here. We're trying to have open communication. So do they need to be called public hearings?
They don't have to be called public hearings.
Okay.
That can be just like, I don't know what you would call it, Deborah, like it's like extended citizens comments. I don't know what that means.
Well, it would be a discussion item if you're not, of course, public hearing, you don't take action anyway. You're opening it and closing it.
Yeah.
I guess the attorney would have to tell us how the wording would be because it's a discussion item. But then normally when you do a discussion, you don't necessarily take the public's comments at the same
So
time.
what we're trying to accomplish here, and this is specifically directed to our attorney, what we're trying to accomplish is open communication. We're having discussions. We want to make sure that people have the opportunity to, just as we've talked about, to question, to challenge, to really hash this out in a public forum where their elected representatives can be included with that.
So what you're deciding on, yes, is to keep these dates for public hearings, and they are public hearings, and they will be hosted by the city council the way this is worded. Whether or not you put any action you take on those agendas will be determined when you get to February based on input you've received up to that point and answers to questions you've had. If you get to February 11th and February 25th, we get in that area and there are still way too many questions, we hold the public hearings, we gather input just like you're suggesting there, but there's no action taken on those meetings.
Do you think that it would be,
Schedule more public hearings.
Bruce, you had an idea?
Well, sir, if I may.
Sorry, Bruce Alexander.
Bruce Alexander, 516 Vienna. I just wanted to expand on Councilman Dyer's comment. And of course, obviously, I would defer to you, sir, and your city attorney. But I'm holding Chapter 211 of the municipal code that deals with this. And it specifically states that you'll have a public hearing before P&Z and a public hearing before City Council, and then the action. So I appreciate what Councilman Dyer said, because once you have the public hearings, you take action whenever you want to. You don't have to come back and tell anybody.
Yeah.
You just take it to, we have the hearing, so I would encourage you not to have public hearings if you wanted to have public discussion.
Yep.
The notices are the notices, but you don't have to call the meetings public hearings. But once you
Point
have
well
a public
taken.
hearing,
So
you just adopt it.
to that end, can we, instead of having the official public hearings that, again, the intent here is to keep open communication, not to rush things through. What stresses people out is if we go through and we tick all the boxes and then we have the ability to make it, they don't trust that we're not going to. And so this is really about holding ourselves accountable and making sure that people don't feel threatened by action that could be taken without them being aware of it. So with these, can we just call them town halls and we'll do our official law required public hearings separate from these?
That's fine. Or I know.
You could, yes, you can. It will be different than what has gone out in these letters, but everything that these gentlemen have said is accurate. Once the noted public hearing is held, yes, you can take action anytime. So if that's an issue for the city council, you can call them town halls. What I want to be careful about doing though is once you start getting into something like and you calling it something such as a town hall, to your point, sir, to Councilmember Dyer's point, if we want to make sure that records are that minutes are taken, recordings are made, and things such as that. All bets are off once you start calling something other than, a regular city council meeting or a city council meeting to address these issues. So you're not going to find anything in the local government code or the Open Meetings Act that talks about town halls. And so we can call it a workshop hearing on the regular council agenda or something such as that. But because this was published as the city council will hold this, I would recommend that you keep it within the confines of your council meetings. And you can call whatever that forum is, whatever you want to, other than a public hearing, if that's going to be the issue. I would not hold something separate from that that you call the town hall, because that's too close to what's going on over at this other place, which is not an official meeting of the city council or anything like that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
with regards to the schedule and the agendas that we will hold and publish for these meetings, those can be they can be whatever we want. They can not contain any action items, and they can have public input periods after every item that is presented. So I'm not feeling the need to change that. I would like to proceed.
Okay, so,
Well, and then I have, since these are our normal meeting days, and we know that it's going to be long discussion, I'd only have this item on there.
One
Okay.
item only.
I didn't look at this. Are these regular
Yes,
council?
Really called meeting.
There are council meetings in
Okay.
February.
So there will be other business.
Right, we can't take the entire January off, but maybe we could take a look at moving the other items, whatever items we can, to the other side,
Yeah.
to leave plenty of room for discussion.
Correct, because it's going to be a long one.
Okay, Phil?
And to alleviate the fears that you mentioned, which, Bruce, it's a valid thing. But if we have a public meeting, I'll guarantee you, I'm not going to vote for anything by trying to skirt around this. I think, again, I'm going to, until we hear it all, I want to hear as much feedback as we can. Again, going back to Bob Lee's example, the more feedback that he gives us in this, is the better it is.
Yeah.
And by leaving it in this form where there are notes and minutes and everything else and everything's written down, I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, I think that council is unified on the fact that nobody wants to push this to get it through, to just do it. We want to do it right.
The
So,
only agenda is to get it right.
right. Okay, and do it openly. Okay, so I have a motion and I have a second on scheduling the dates for these. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion passes. We will continue to earn your trust.
And if we don't, vote half of us out in May. Please.
Heard us. Yes, please. All right, next item is consider and take appropriate action on an MOU between Castroville Police Department and Medina Valley ISD.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We've been working several months, meeting with the superintendent, the public safety director, going over some plans. And we all felt in best interest that we would enter into this MOU. It gives us the footprint of Medina Valley ISD as far as jurisdictional purposes. And actually, probably in the near future, we will be discussing some other things with council, partnering with Medina Valley ISD in the future with these agreements. It's not uncommon to see these type of agreements, as I mentioned in the agenda item summary. Usually it's like with some type of task force or something like that. And it's not uncommon to see this through the education code, partnering with law enforcement. Legal has reviewed it. Legal at Medina Valley ISD has reviewed it. And I'll entertain any questions.
Great. Do we have any questions for the chief? All right, so I think that the motion that we're looking for here is to authorize the chief of police to sign the proposed MOU with MVISD.
So moved.
Great. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, discussion on future agenda items. Please make sure that you have your agenda items. I know that we had one or two from Sheena. I've got another one that's on here. I think that we should consider doing a work session, what Councilman Dyer was talking about in terms of like a page, I call them page turns, where you actually go through them. I think that there's got to be some revisions before we can do that. I feel like there's a lot of repetitiveness in the current one. When I look at one of the problems that we've had with our previous ones is that we had information in 2 locations, and we've got a lot of that. So we've got to refine this, get it down to it's too long, it's too repetitive. We need to make it clear, concise, informative, and accurate. So I wouldn't be opposed to doing a special called meeting to do a work session on this. A workshop specifically to work through that and do the comparison and do the what if analysis.
What are we working on tomorrow? Because we have a workshop tomorrow.
We do, y'all have a joint one with the P and Z tomorrow night here at 6:30 to 8 to go over, I think, tonight.
Yeah, and we can work through some of those questions there, but just to give people plenty of time to work through that, I think we'll hit the surface on it with this, but I think that we'll get better on this. One of the other things I mentioned before that I'm going to have on a January agenda is our communications policy, because with the letter, I guarantee you that Brianna has the best of intentions. She wants to do things right. She really cares about that. But there are times that we will see things that staff will not see in terms of impact, perception. And so I want to put together a policy on what can be sent out without approval, what needs to have director approval, what has to have city manager approval, what has to have city council approval, and be very clear about what that communication needs to look like. Things like what Kathy was sending out for the incident over the gas station, perfectly fine, send them out. The thing on the letter should have come in front of council. We should have reviewed it and looked at revisions before something of that magnitude went out. So I want to have that as a discussion item on a January council meeting. I've already sent, as soon as that came out, I ignored my gut reaction and decided that I was going to enjoy my Thanksgiving and allow city staff to do the same thing. But on Monday, directly after that, I sent out the agenda item preparation that we will do that. So, okay, anything else that we've missed? All right, we are through our agenda and adjourned at 6:22. Thank you, everybody.
Well, we
You're
should
gonna
maybe
see us all
you
tomorrow.
next.
Yeah. Yeah, because my parents don't arrive until next Saturday.
Let me feel all this.
Yeah.